when you look in the rearview mirror, even a week or a month ago, and you see where you've come, I think that's a good reflection moment.
Hey, hello. Welcome back to the Wild Business Growth Podcast. This is your place to hear from a new entrepreneur every single Wednesday morning who's turning wild ideas into wild growth. I'm your host, Max Brandstetter, founder and podcast producer at Max Podcasting, and you can email me at max@maxpodcasting.com to save time with your high-quality podcast. This is episode 2, and today's guest is Shannon Erley. Shannon is the founder and CEO of Pomp, a super cool company who connects consumers with licensed estheticians, which I can spell backwards and in multiple languages by this point, even though I can't pronounce the word languages, and helps give pointers and recommendations for fantastic skincare products that could come in handy for those consumers. In this episode, we talk how Pomp came about, how Shannon's leveraging her network to create all these connections and create a network of Pomp's own, and everything from horseback riding to apple pie, which is a hell of a combination. It is Shannon. Get pumped. Enjoy the show. Alrighty, we are here with Shannon Erley, and today we are going to pump it up. She's the founder and CEO of Pomp, doing really, really cool stuff in the beauty world, in the world of estheticians, which I've practiced saying that word 12 times already. Shannon, thank you so much for joining. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having us. I thought we were the only ones that said we're going to pump you up, so I appreciate that. We're not the only ones internally saying it.
Of course. I'm pumped just thinking about it, but
yeah.
Really, really cool. We're going to get to your business story. We're going to get to kind of the whole world of beauty, which I know about a sliver about, so I'm going to learn a ton in this interview. And on that note, how did you get into this world of beauty in the first place?
I mean, I feel like I've been a consumer of beauty for my whole life. It started when I was younger, and I just always had really, really bad acne through childhood. So I was really diving into the beauty world early on, junior high, high school, trying to figure out what skincare products would work for me. So my start in the beauty industry started as a consumer with problematic skin. And then from there, just continued to evolve. And then I started working for a couple different beauty skincare lines, really diving into all aspects of the industry, understanding the different retailers out there, a lot of the professionals like estheticians, dermatologists, med spas. So really started from a personal perspective and consumer, but then also started working in the industry and diving in from there.
I got chills. I guess not in a good way when you said acne, because I can relate. I think you've been through it. I've been through it. My brother as well. I know my dad growing up as well. Like anybody who, so many people experience acne growing up, but when it gets to like that next level where it's like, just seems like there's no answer for it, it's really not fun. So I can definitely see how that kind of helps spike your interest in the space.
Yeah, and it's personal for everyone. I was completely insecure about my skin. I was having like cysts and boils, like very, very extreme acne. And then to counteract that, then I was covering up with so much makeup, and then that wasn't making things worse. And so really just trying to figure out and find a route to the cause and how to treat it and how to feel, just more confident about myself and the skin that I was given. And so it's a journey for a lot of people.
When were you first exposed to these people called estheticians.
Yeah. Yes, and we internally we call them Esties. So I know it's
Estes.
easier.
Okay, that's much easier. Yeah, that's great. I love
Yeah.
it.
So if it's easier for you to say, part of my struggle with skin, I was working at the time in the beauty industry, and I was still having adult hormonal acne, and I'm like, how am I working in the industry? How, and I still can't figure out how to get my skin under control. And then I started working with an esthetician. At the time, I was living in San Diego. I started working with an esthetician, getting facials, which was kind of the first step. So getting, the treatments in office. But then after that, she was able to cherry pick the right products for my skin. So she understood, okay, what are you using at home? Okay, keep using this. I'm going to add in this. That was kind of my first step into the whole world of more like professional aesthetics. And she really started working with me, and my skin started improving. We started making some tweaks, and I thought, okay, the beauty industry is so crowded. It's so competitive. There are so many, influencers or beauty bloggers or new brands trying to come in and be the next best thing. And honestly, it's like, wait a second, how do we bring more attention to estheticians? They've gone to school for the skin, they understand the skin. So that was kind of my first step into working with an esthetician. And it was also this aha moment too of, okay, how do we, like, why aren't more people getting recommendations from them?
So let's pump it up a bit more. And I'm sorry because you're gonna you're gonna hate your own company name after the end of this interview. But no, it's awesome. I love it. It's super short and sweet and visual. When was the first point that it clicked in your head that, hey, maybe I could start a business in this space?
So it started kind of a while ago. And it was this aha moment of, wait a second, I've had been in the industry for a while. I've seen a lot of the sides of it. What would it look like to start a business to bring more awareness to estheticians? And it was a longer journey and process than what I had originally thought. Came up with a different idea with some friends around a campfire that was more geared towards the person shopping for skincare and looking for skincare advice. And then it really just started evolving into being more esthetician focused. But I don't know if there was really this one moment where I thought, okay, I'm going to start a business, but it really evolved over time. And I'm a pretty risk adverse person. So I didn't really like the idea of starting my own business and everything that came with it. But it was a process, and I spent about a year qualifying the idea to see if it would even make sense. And then once I started getting more validation from estheticians, industry professionals, friends and family, I thought, okay, well, maybe I can start a business here around this.
What did that validation process look like when you're talking to friends and family and, SDs and and everybody
Yeah.
else?
Yeah, well, it looked different for different avenues. So I was talking to some skincare lines in the industry and said, okay, what if we had a different business model or distribution channel that's different from what you're normally used to, like selling into retailers or to individual spas or dermatology offices? What would it look like for you to work with an online platform or marketplace? And so they were different conversations with different groups to qualify and validate. So with the skincare lines, I was getting more validation from them of saying, okay, yes, we actually would be interested in working in a new type of channel, like a marketplace or digital platform. And then with estheticians, it was like, well, would you even use a platform like this? Do you have a need for interacting with clients in a different way and getting new clients virtually? Like, is that even of interest? And then on the consumer side with friends and family and some others, it was, would you even interact with an esthetician virtually. Like, do you even know what an esthetician is? So I think the validation journey and that discovery looked a little different because I was trying to segment all the different sides.
I mean, that research phase is so key. And so I think that's awesome that you went through so many different avenues to really validate this and say, okay, how would this look and what would make it better? Which begs the question, at the time of this recording, how different or similar is Pomp today versus what you kind of envisioned in those early days?
Yeah, it's quite different. I would say there's still a lot of the same like core values of what we started with, but otherwise it's pretty different. We originally started focused more on the skincare shopper and problematic skin, focused on the end consumer and having them be paired with an esthetician. And I think what has really evolved is supporting the esthetician and building out a lot of technology and tooling to support them. So we are still so much focused on how do we partner people looking for skincare with estheticians. But what we're also focused on and where the shift really happened was, so we launched March of 2020. And what was an aha moment for us is estheticians' businesses were shut down overnight. They could not service clients. And so that's where we really started to lean into, well, how can we bring you people looking for skincare virtually and help out what you're doing, and how can we use your expertise to make these recommendations for people? So the business is the same, but our focus is more on just the estheticians and why people should be getting recommendations from them and how can we support them.
So as someone who's not the most in the world, maybe second most in the world, familiar with estheticians,
Yeah.
what's the main value or benefit that estes provide?
I think they really understand the skin. So they're not a dermatologist, so they're not going to diagnose or be able to prescribe anything. But I think what really makes them different than, look, I mean, I actually used to help train retail associates, and unfortunately, we can only train someone so much with someone who is selling 10 other skincare lines, or might be selling a handbag, a lipstick, and a serum. Whereas estheticians they've gone to school for at least 600 hours and it's a skilled trade. And so they really understand. And so I think what also makes them different is they really care about the skin and the recommendations of what people are using.
So how do you, I mean, you obviously started talking to them in the early days. I mean, even before it was a company, but maybe it was a full LLC in your head, but it wasn't a full, living, breathing company yet.
Yeah.
But fast forward and, you have an amazing network of partners and estheticians and, as well as doctors kind of helping with leadership and advising you as well. How have you been able to create those connections to, make these awesome estheticians available to the end consumer?
Yeah, great question. So a lot of it and we're still kind of in the trenches. We're still startup mode, doing things that don't scale. But I think for us, it was really leaning into our network. And you would be surprised how many people are willing to jump in and help and provide connections and referrals to people. So at the time, I was still living in San Diego, and I had kind of just a personal network of estheticians that I started building. And then from there, just told people what I was working on, and then really started building out an esthetician network pretty organically. And that's just continued to be a core focus. We're trying to do a little bit more and explore in other channels to build out our esthetician network, but also we have a medical director as well who's been helpful in just really leaning into our network as much as we can.
Yeah, it's super helpful. I think I go back to when I was starting my podcast production business, and like literally the business was built from the ground up and like growing clients all through referrals. And I think if you going back in time, I would have been more intentional about it. But fortunately, like having a podcast and doing interviews like this connects you with so many amazing people. And you're right, more often than not, people, when they see that you're in need, or they see that you're trying to achieve something, people are over the top helpful.
Yeah.
And willing to help out. So it's really cool that like that's how you're building your network of estheticians as well,
Yeah.
for Pomp. How does it look for the end consumer if they are to start using Pomp?
Yeah. So great question. So you could go on today. um,
Right now.
right now. Yes, we want to make it as easy as possible for the end consumer. So I think one barrier to entry for estheticians is, in order to see an esthetician, you are going to be most likely getting a treatment, and you're going to spend minimum $75 for a facial and up from there. For Pomp, and what we're trying to do is make it completely free and seamless for the end consumer. If you are looking for skincare recommendations, you're intimidated, you don't want to go get a treatment because you don't even know where to start, we're kind of that first stop. So you would fill out a skincare survey about your age, locations big, just based on humidity and climate, any concerns, what products you're using. And from there, that kind of gets our esthetician started. And then we match you with one of our estheticians who will follow up for a message based skin consult. So it's kind of all in your time. It's really easy. They'll request a photo of your skin if you feel comfortable, and then that will give them the ability to get started. And I think what's so nice about that is you can do it in the privacy of your own home, and you don't have to walk in anywhere. And so if you are really concerned or have insecurities about your skin, you can really do it behind your phone. Then the esthetician will curate some products. So if they'll find out like, oh, keep using that cleanser that you have, but this is a serum and moisturizer that I would recommend for you, and build it into your treatment room, and you can order all through the platform. And what's nice about that is the esthetician, they get commission off of all of that. So we really try to build up the esthetician, and they are your, esthetician in your pocket, like what we like to say. They're your personal esthetician. And I think what also makes us different from some others is the fact that we aren't an algorithm. We aren't formulating our own products. We work with a bunch of different skincare lines already out there, and we want a human expertise behind that recommendation.
So we got Wockets in your pocket, we got Estes in your pocket,
Yeah.
all sorts of Polly Pocket. I love how the approach is making it free and seamless for the consumer, because as you mentioned, this is your skin. Like, this is something that's so important and can lead to so many insecurities. And there's, of course, skin is not an easy thing, and there's always questions about, okay, what lotion should I use? What different products should I use? And you really never know. So it really helps to speak to real experts like this. So I think it's a really strong mission that you're building everything behind. How on the business side, you mentioned commission. Is that your main revenue stream, or what's the main way that you're making money as a business from this?
Yeah. So our main revenue stream is through product, like skincare product purchases through the marketplace. And then estheticians paying to use as a subscription service, paying to use the platform themselves.
Awesome. Okay. So there's almost like the consulting or helpfulness side of your business, and then there's the actual marketplace that you're building as well.
Yep.
How much of your time in these first few years of building the business is focused on like the consultation side versus the marketplace side?
Right now, I would say it has all been on the marketplace, and now we've just expanded the subscription service, the SaaS platform for estheticians, just within the last month.
Awesome. So
Yeah,
okay, so
so that's
subscription
new.
service.
Yep.
By the way, so as if esthetician wasn't enough of a mouthful, subscription service or software as a service for estheticians. I think
Oh,
say
yeah,
that
yeah,
14 times fast.
yeah. SaaS for Estes is that's easier.
I love it. Awesome. A lot of S's. We got
Yeah.
Sally selling seashells. I can't even say it. So it's really cool to see the different aspects of your business that you've built. As an entrepreneur, what would you say in these early years of the business has been the biggest challenge that you've had to conquer?
Oh my gosh, more than I even thought. I would say doing more than like I had a very specific focus and skill set, but I think what has been the more challenging is, your legal, your HR, your kind of everything else that you're figuring out that you didn't really know you needed to be and do. So that was hard. And honestly, we raised our first round of funding last year, and I would say that was the other big hurdle for us was fundraising virtually during COVID. I had never fundraised or even talked to an investor ahead of that, so it was a pretty big challenge as well.
Well, congrats on that. That's well, fundraising is something that like anybody who started a business knows that it consumes your life for better or for worse.
Yeah,
There's so much time and you have so much passion and time and energy invested in it. And then like fundraising is something on top of that. It's something extra of like, okay, even, in addition to the day to day, this is something else that we want to work on if we're interested in.
yeah,
So that's like a whole other world. And then things like legal, HR. I mean, I remember like first year in business, just like learning about, okay, like what's the deal with taxes and like quarterly
yeah,
estimated payments and stuff like that. Like nobody tells you about that stuff.
yeah.
So there's such a big learning curve there. On the flip side of that, what has been, you think, the biggest driver to your success as a company so far?
I think the biggest driver, I mean, at least for me personally, we actually just did a offsite with our team a couple weeks ago, and for me, it was just reminding us of our mission and why we're doing what we're doing. And it's the people around that are making such an impact, because as things grow, it's like you kind of have to release the reins to your team and let them take the reins. And it's been really cool to see that and just know the people around us have really been the contributing factors to our success and our growth and where we've come. But and then just our mission, and that's really what continues to at least drive me and us is what we're doing. It is a big mission when we want to change and disrupt a very massive beauty industry. And so it can be daunting when you have such a big vision to disrupt it. But I think that's something that kind of keeps us all moving forward.
It's a fantastic mission to build a company around. And I know from, as we alluded to, like my history with acne and never knowing what products to use, and still I have no idea. I'm pretty basic, but my ever since I've been with my fiance, oh wow. So at the time of this recording, she's my fiance Dana, but by the time this comes out, this will be the first time. My wife Dana. So big
Wow.
moment.
Oh, I love
Yeah,
that.
big moment. So my
Big
wife
moment.
Dana. Yeah, exactly. Shout out Dana. My wife Dana has over the years experienced, allergies of different sorts as relates to skin and beauty. So she's even more conscious of, what she's using on her skin and body. And I think what you and team have created is so crazy helpful, and it all goes back to that mission. So it seems like a really, really organic, pun intended, way to start a business. So that's terrific.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like with, oh gosh, yeah, your wife and sensitivity. Weird
You
for
could
me
say
to say
fiance
too.
today, and then for the final release, we'll say wife.
So I think even for her with having sensitivities, I think what is unique is we work with so many different product lines that can really fit to how, like, what someone's core concerns are. And education is big for us internally and with our esthetician. So I think I mentioned this earlier. We don't make our own products. So we're not, a Pomp skincare line. We work with about 15, 17 different skincare lines. All of our estheticians are trained and licensed, and they really understand all of the lines. But what's interesting about the lines we work with, some are botanically based, some are organic, some are very clinical. So what's helpful with that is anyone who comes in with a specific request or concern, that really allows them to be able to tailor recommendations.
If you're looking for some recommendations of your own of the podcast variety, may I suggest, I'll just throw my hat into the ring there for the Podcasting to the Max newsletter. You can sign up at maxpodcasting.com/newsletter. You'll even get how to edit your podcast in Audacity, the ebook I created, when you sign up. It's maxpodcasting.com/newsletter. You get recommendations on podcast tips as well as some behind the scenes pretty cool stories from the Wild Business Growth podcast, even if I can't pronounce it correctly. Now, let's go from recommendations to recommendations. So speaking of recommendations, let's get to inspiration and creativity. And that sounds like it has nothing to do with recommendations, but
Yeah.
I want to hear recommendations from you personally, as a person as well as an entrepreneur and business owner. What are your favorite ways to stay fresh, to stay creative? Like, what do you do when you're not 100% focused on work to kind of free your mind up?
So I'm married, and my husband knows when I start to bake, that's like kind of my release. So he's like, okay, she's baking now. So I bake. I also have a deep love of horses and animals. And so I don't get to ride as much as I would like to, but I try to take riding lessons as much as I can to try to get myself in a different environment.
When you started saying bake, I just got excited and I started like smelling, I think from memory, all these just amazing different baked treats from all over. I mean, absolutely. I think anyone's a fan of baking or at least consuming the baked goods.
Yes.
What's your favorite thing to bake?
So I am known for my apple pie. I'm pretty famous for it.
Okay. We need to just end this right now because I need to eat apple pie right now. But
yes, good. I'm known for that. And I will say, so with COVID, there was a trend with sourdough starters, but I have to say,
my dad has always wanted to do this. Dad, you should start this. Try this.
Yes, I highly recommend it. I actually have a 4-year-old sourdough starter. So I started before the COVID trend. So I do. I know I was ahead of the time, but I love making sourdough too.
Sourdough and apple pie, can't go wrong.
I know.
And then horses and animals. So horses, is this? Have you been riding horses like your whole life? Does that go back to childhood?
It does. I've been riding my whole life. Friends and family joke that every sport and activity I tried out for in junior high and high school, I never made. So that's why I picked up horseback riding. And I just find them very therapeutic, and they're very smart and intelligent animals. And if you're having a bad day, they can sense it. They're like dogs. There's just, it's a very therapeutic release.
Well, we're two peas in a pod. I got cut by the baseball team my senior year, which wasn't fun. But yeah, not making a team isn't fun. But I think over time you get over it.
You get used to it, yeah.
Yeah, but you find new passions, and yeah, it's so true. I think horses, for people that are familiar with horses, are extremely beloved or beloved, however you prefer to say that.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. You have those aspects of your personality outside of work. On the more inspiration side, who is like a mentor or fellow business owner or someone in the space that's been really helpful to you as you're getting Pomp off the ground?
Oh gosh. When I was working, I live in Denver now, but I was still back in San Diego, and the old CMO at one of the beauty companies I was working for, she was really, really helpful. Encouraging on all fronts with just her industry knowledge. She had been part of other startups, and she was just really helpful with and encouraging with the idea, and like, hey, no, I've been in the industry for a long time and I've never seen anything like this. And I think you're on to something. I told her the idea about 2 years before we launched, and she was like, I loved it so much. I didn't say a word to anyone because I was hoping you would do it. And so yeah, she was really helpful in the beginning.
That goes back to that with your network and referrals. That helpfulness is it's a really beautiful thing, and literally can help create businesses.
Yeah.
And then how about on I call them resources, but what are some areas that you kind of researched, whether it's sites or blogs or podcasts or books, something in that space
Yeah.
that helped you to learn a lot about, estheticians and skincare and beauty and kind of everything in the space you're building around?
I read a lot of articles. I am also a member. I became a member of CEW, which is Cosmetics Executive Women. A lot of their articles that they release. I found more of my research to actually be on the fundraising side and the technology side, because I didn't know the first thing about even hiring a developer and what a product roadmap was and all of that. So I found more of my energy focused around some things that I just like really had no clue of what I was doing.
So speaking of no clue, we always have no clue where this segment is going to end up, but that's what makes it so wonderful. Let's get to the unusual. So pet peeves, quirks, weird talents. This is aspects of you as a person, your personality that really have no impact on your business, but we just love learning about personalities of entrepreneurs. So
Okay.
first off, pet peeves. What's something that really grinds your gears?
Mansplaining really grinds my gears.
Hold on, let me explain that for a second.
Yeah, you
No,
want to
I'm
explain
just kidding.
that?
Oh my god. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna move on before I get in trouble. Quirks. What's something quirky about your personality? It's a bit unique, but it's who you are.
I can be really goofy at times. I don't let it show often, but I can be.
Do you have an example of goofiness? You mean just like in conversation, or like?
Just in conversations, or just like I'll say something that I think is hilarious, and it clearly like fell flat, but I like thought it was like the cat's meow.
That hits that hits way too close to home. I know that feeling. And then what about weird talents besides using amazing idioms like the cat's meow?
Yeah.
Just a second ago. What's a weird talent? What's something that or you could view it as a party trick as well, something that you're really good at. It has no impact on your business, but like you just have a knack for X.
Oh, that's a hard one. I will say I have a knack for hosting. I really like to host. So not super exciting, but I do have a knack for that.
That is very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a real skill. So I really appreciate that. All right, let's wrap up with some rapid fire Q&A. You ready for it?
Okay. Yep.
All right, let's get wild. Well, you don't have to reveal all the secret ingredients, but what's something that makes a delicious apple pie?
Ooh, butter flavored Crisco.
Ooh, all right, nice. Crisco getting a special shout out in this episode. Didn't expect it. And then what is your favorite horse breed?
Arabians.
Awesome. Arabian Crisco.
Yeah.
All right. And then what is some general beauty advice you can share? This is something that it's not, we don't need to get granular, but just in general, if you're thinking about how to take care of your skin, what's something you can share overall?
SPF daily. Always. It's the number one.
Oh my God. Yeah. I'm thinking to my wife, Dana's mom, Cheryl, always. So my mother-in-law, Cheryl, always reminds us to use sunscreen because her dad, Jack, was a dermatologist for many years.
Okay.
And so I think growing up, they're always making sure plenty of sunscreen, cover up in the sun. And so I always think of them. So that's great. And then what is a trick for, well, not a trick, that sounds devious. What is a tip for being a fantastic host for like a dinner party?
I would say just always having the table preset. And I do prefer to have place cards. So it takes away people guessing where they should sit.
Oh, okay. Perfect. And the wedding planning time. Very interesting. Very interesting. Taking notes here. And then last one. So you live in Denver, which is awesome city. But even more awesome than that, I would argue, is you're from Ohio originally, as am I, obviously. If you've listened to any of these episodes, Ohio comes up frequently. But what's the I know you lived in San Diego in between, but what's kind of the biggest difference or culture shock that you've noticed between Ohio and Colorado?
Oh, I actually think the bigger culture shock was Ohio and California.
Okay, true. Yeah, you can answer it that way too.
Yeah, I think I left Ohio when I was 18 and small town of 3,000 people and went to San Diego. So more of a culture shock there. I actually think Denver is such a melting pot of people from the Midwest that it actually feels a little more welcoming and warm.
Interesting. Okay, cool. So shout out my cousin Jeff and his wife Emma, as they recently moved from Cincinnati to Denver. So they are truly fitting the mold of Midwest to melting pot of Denver.
They sure are.
Awesome cities all around. I got to say, going from Ohio, shout out Ohio, but also to going from San Diego to Denver. I think you've lived in some awesome cities, so that's I think you've been pretty travel strategic in where you've picked out where you're living. Those are really cool spots.
I think
awesome.
So.
Well, Shannon, thank you so much. This has been Pomptastic. I was trying to think of another pomp pun, but I can't. Maybe intro, outro. But this has been really, really cool. I really appreciate what you're doing. And again, such a meaningful mission behind the company you're building. It's so awesome to hear about your stories. Thanks again for coming on. And where's the best place for people to try out Pomp? And then if they want to connect with you personally?
Yeah. If you want to try out Pomp, it's Pomp, Pomp, beauty.com. Completely free to get started. And then if you want to reach out to me, I give out my personal email. It's Shannon@pompbeauty.com. Feel free to shoot me a note. Happy to connect.
Perfect. Pompict. Okay. And then last thing, final thoughts. The stage is yours. It could be a quote. It could be horse riding advice. It could be literally anything. But what's some words of wisdom to leave everyone with?
Oh, gosh. When you are in the day-to-day grind and you don't feel like you're making any progress, when you look in the rearview mirror, even a week or a month ago, and you see where you've come, I think that's a good reflection moment.
Reflect. I will mirror that. Thank you so much, Shannon, for coming on the podcast, sharing your story, all the apple pie recipes, as well as the Pomp story and awesome tips for entrepreneurs. And thank you, wild listeners, for tuning in to another episode. If you want to hear more wild stories like this one, make sure to follow the Wild Business Growth Podcast on your favorite app and tell a friend about the podcast. And then check out Pomp with them. It will pomp you up, as if we didn't use that enough. You can also find us on Good Pods or Good Pomps. Just kidding, JJ. And for any help with podcast production, you can learn more at maxpodcasting.com and sign up for the Podcasting to the Max newsletter at maxpodcasting.com/newsletter. Until next time, let your business run wild.
Bring on the bongos!